And hi, everybody. We are here on the show, Strange Reality Show with Dave Emmons. And I have a special guest with me. He's been here before, and you've all enjoyed what he talked about. He's very knowledgeable. He covers a lot of topics, and he knows quite a bit about the ET and UFO phenomena. And we were talking about other topics just pre-show, and we'll probably throw those in too and talk about them, like the pyramid mystery that's going on now, and other things. We'll talk about probably some of the paranormal effects of ETs and UFOs, and what's going on with the latest in disclosure. And also, my guest is part of a think tank, and he works with some government people, and some of the stuff he doesn't talk about, but he can give us an idea of where we're standing on that disclosure thing. And I think he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, probably a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted him back. He's a great, pool of knowledge, for this subject and this matter. And I want to thank everybody for contributing to the views and clicks on the show, and I hope everybody continues to do that. And also buy my books. Trying to sell those too, and those are very hard to sell. And I think my guest probably could, attest to that too. So you need all the help you can get there. But everything is going, I guess, okay on the shows. I'd like to get more enlightenment of people and get them, in the idea of disclosure, because I think the more people that know or get enlightened. There's a lot of people that don't even want to talk about ETs and UFOs, but they're out there. Even the government's talking about them. So here on Strange Rally, we're going to talk about them. My return guest is Steve Mera. He's an investigative researcher and journalist in anomalous phenomena. His work has taken him all over the world, conducting experiments and presentations. Steve is associated with a number of international think tanks and specializes in the subject of advanced UAP studies, parapsychological experiments, yeah, my tongue is dry, and paranormal mechanics. He is the author of several books and a head tutor of the UITC UFO Investigators Training Course. Steve has hosted and featured in over 300 international TV shows and is an official spokesman for the subject related to TV documentaries and movies with Fox TV, Hammer Productions, and many others. He is an executive producer of a number of series of documentaries and an actor, and has been involved in these subjects for over 40 years. While an actor, researcher, journalist. Wow, Steve, you've done quite a bit, buddy.
I've done it
Steve,
all.
Steve Merrill, what are you doing now? I mean, what's up now? Anything new with you?
I'm always doing something, Dave. First off, thanks for having me on the show. But I like to keep myself busy, and over the years, I've expanded into other areas in research and a lot of television, a lot of media work. I'm always doing something. There's always something in the pipeline. Now, there are some series that will take a long time to produce because it takes a long time, literally, to make a series.
Mhm.
And there are other ones where there were just single documentaries, which I'm heavily involved in. I did Unsolved Mysteries for the US. They flew over to do that. That was out in October 2024.
Mhm.
From the latest series, I think it's Volume 5, and the episode is called Paranormal Partner. And that was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, only explained with Bill Shatner, and I've done quite a number of different things. So I'm always things being processed. I'm on a lot of projects at the moment. Project Enigma, Phenomena Project, Project Doorway. They're all different and independent projects I'm working on. So my time is divided up amongst all these various different things. But I just like to keep busy as much as I can do.
Sounds like you're really busy. Are these top secret type of government programs?
Well, no, no, not necessarily. I mean, it's about the fringe topics of the certainly the top of the line type of experiments and research is being carried out in regarding numerous different phenomena, including cryptids, actually.
Hmm.
So we are covering the paranormal, the ufological, the cryptid, and
Well,
associations between them.
yeah, there seems to be, I mean, even it's been mentioned by the Pope, the Vatican, that supernatural beings are, I guess, involved in this interdimensional type stuff and
Yeah,
dimensional. Even our government has mentioned they're interdimensional beings. Now we had a conversation about this pyramid finding, Steve, and
interesting.
you had some insight on it. Could you
Yeah,
kind of repeat what we were talking about in the
absolutely.
show? Go ahead and
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's everywhere at the moment. A lot of news features on it, but it tends to be a regurgitation that takes place, and then another newspaper picks up on it and runs the same kind of story. Now, it talks about utilizing special lidar and radar systems known as SAR, and the discovery of something very large underneath the Khufu pyramid, which is kind of the middle pyramid of all three. Now, we can't say for a fact that the others haven't got them because there are three large pyramids. Actually, there's quite a number of pyramids throughout the area, but the three main ones, as we know, which we often see on the Giza Plateau, the largest ones, there might be something below the other two, the Great Pyramid and the other one. So it's just that they haven't had them done in the same way. They've not been examined by LiDAR and radar in the same manner. But the Khufu Pyramid certainly did, which is the middle pyramid as we see on the Giza Plateau. So it's quite interesting. But SARS is nothing new. It's been going back for at least over 10 years. None of the people that conducted the tests, I believe, consulted or even asked permissions from the Egyptian government to do so. They just kind of went in and did it and then released their information. So, of course, they've upset a few people. Now, there is a lot of speculation here. Now, I've seen the drawings, I've seen the plans. These very large columns that seem to go very deep, for a mile or mile and a half into the ground underneath the pyramid. Now, what I can say is that going back years now, I mean, I've been working with Bertie von Däniken quite a few times over the years, and on one such occasion, we did discuss about the shafts. Now, there are shafts, and I'm not talking about the star shafts that go up at, say, 45-degree angles and point towards certain places in the heavens. I'm talking about huge shafts underneath the pyramids that go down for a tremendous amount of distance. Now, these shafts are huge. Down there, if it takes a lot to get down there, but they actually installed ladders there for people who on the inside can get down there. And when you get down there, it starts to become flooded chambers. Chambers go even deeper, but they're underwater because the water from the Nile, you are below the water level, well below the water level there. Even though the Giza Plateau is lifted on a plateau, by the time you get down there, you're actually literally lower than the Nile, so it's flooded. They do go deeper than that. We know that, but it's hard to get to when it's all flooded. But there are a number of flooded chambers. New things and discoveries were found in those chambers, but it was they were flooded. Now we've known this for a long time that there's large construction underneath the pyramids. I believe there's large construction under all the pyramids, not just the Khufu, not just the Great Pyramid, all of them. The first point of building would have been there. But what the scans show, and you can see clearly the scans, and it's very difficult to ascertain, are these columns? There's something that looks a little bit like columns, unless it's some type of. I mean, I can't imagine it to be a different type of rock. It's mostly sandstone and types of quartz and things like that. So I can't imagine that, but it does look like there's definitely construction, and I will agree there is construction there. But to reveal it as columns with spirals going around and platforms it's just it's a little bit of a far reach, to say someone's looked at them and said, I think it looks like this. From his description, people have made drawings, computer images, and that's what's being circulated around the world. It's a proposal. It's a possible. Could it be this? Not this is what it is. But it gets kind of twisted. as the new media tend to do. But it is very interesting. And what is most surprising is that if these things are there and they are literally go that deep, then there is the possibility that these go back tens of thousands of years prior to the the timing and the estimation of the build of the Great Pyramid and its associates, which means it pushes it into an era prior to the Egyptians being there,
Mhm.
which would form, form it kind of backs up the idea that a number of researchers have said that the Egyptians adopted the pyramids. Now, this is, it's believable because we have to say there's enough evidence to support that the same things has happened in other countries. If you're anybody, and many of our viewers may have even traveled to Peru, and I have myself a number of times, and it's some fantastic places. But the government, Peruvian government, class everything as Inca, Inca construction. But clearly, they were pre-Inca construction there, and they were adopted by the Inca. The Inca did not develop the skills to create the pre-Inca,
Steve, I
constructions.
was just thinking while you were talking, I was thinking about why the pyramids were built. Well, these columns, from what some of our scientists are saying, and some of these guys are really legit that I'm listening to on the Instagram and everything. They're saying, like you said, about a mile and a half deep, and they're columns, and they're wrapped in a coil of some kind, and at the bottom they have rooms that can actually fit 60,000 people in them. That's how
Yeah,
big they are. And
yeah.
my idea, you're talking about the Incas and the pyramids, is now what the pyramids come afterwards. I think that construction of those towers and those pillars I guess in some kind of an energy machine that was covered by pyramids when they left. When they left this earth, they covered them with pyramids so nobody could
Well,
do
it's
nothing.
interesting. I mean, it is a there always is that possibility.
You know,
However, according to the ancient documents, that the pyramids were covered in limestone. I mean, most of the pyramids are missing the outside stones, to be honest with you,
right. Hmm.
because they would have been angled at like 45 degrees. You wouldn't have been steps, to climb up. In fact, you probably wouldn't have been able to climb up. But these are layers of stones that have been moved from the outside layers of the outside layer of the pyramids, and you've been utilized in other areas, pillaged years later. But they were originally smooth, and they were covered in limestone, and the peak of them was allegedly gold, which is a fantastic conductor. So it could be that the whole thing was being utilized as some type of energy deliverance, to deliver energy. There's also been speculation that they may have had power to be able to have lights,
Hmm.
because we still are unaware that how sophisticated paintings in deep within the pyramids have been created without any charring on the walls, because the only way to see is pitch black in there. I mean pitch black. And there's no way that you could angle mirrors to get an angle from the sun. It's too many twists and turns for the sun to be able to reach that chamber. So it's not the point that they used reflective materials to cast sunlight in there, that they didn't. So how did they operate completely in the dark with these absolutely amazing pictures and drawings with accuracy? Is beyond us, because we would have thought if they'd gone in there with fire, then we'd see some evidence of charring
Right.
around on the walls, on the ceiling. There isn't. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. It's as if that they were able to see, or see in the dark. I mean, it's very strange. But I believe that there is a good point that has been made about energy devices and deliverance of energy. And maybe, I mean, you know what, we can cast our mind back thousands of years to Baghdad, where they found a battery.
Mhm.
It was referred to as the Baghdad battery, and it was operating on citrus fruits, and it's acidic fruits, a copper cylinder, and with generating an electrical charge. Well, that's okay. You say that's fantastic. But what's more interesting is what were they powering? That's the thing. Why make it?
Yeah. Some of these scientists are saying that this stuff is actually pre-human made. It's that old, the underneath the pyramids and everything. But
Well, the problem is with that though, Dave, it's so difficult to date stone. You just cannot really. We have to look for other things to try and date things. Stone is very, very difficult to date. However, I do believe that these things do go back prior to the Egyptians, to be honest. I think the pre-Egyptian, but it's the wrong name really when we say pre-Egyptian. Who are they? Who were these mysterious people that
right.
had this great technology? And not just in Egypt, but in Peru, in Bolivia, Turkey, all over the world, there seem to be pre-existing civilizations which have been wiped out from history. You won't find them in the history books. I mean, for instance, the Paracas, the very long, elongated Paracas skull people. Now, the Paracas people, they, if you go to the pre-Inca sites and dig down in Peru, you will find those skulls, Paracas people. So I think maybe that civilization, this mysterious civilization that seemingly has been wiped out from history, were the pre-Incas, were the people that built it all before the Incas came and kind of adopted it.
Mhm.
And they can't replicate it. You can see Inca design in Peru, and you can see pre-Inca, and you say, there's no way that's the same as that. They couldn't even achieve it nowhere near.
Yeah.
And yet, so what they did is they sometimes, what was left of the pre-Inca stuff, they built Inca stuff on top of it. And you can see the difference in style as time's gone on. But it's very, very strange. And it's the same all over the world. I think that they're trying to push us forward in time to say this is how long humanity has been around, living in cities for say, I don't know, 9,000 years, for an example. And they don't want to go further back. But they're going to have to if they start finding evidence. And I think we do go back further. I think we go back a long, long, long way. I mean, there's even fossil things that have been found, fossil records, and where details of human-looking footprints, which are in rock, which are determined to be extremely old.
Right. Two
You think
million
that
years old. Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And and there was there's an archaeologist. She was very well known. She dug up a bone one day. Worst thing that she ever did for her career. It was a dinosaur bone. But inside that dinosaur bone, when I say a dinosaur bone, I'm not talking from the Jurassic period. I'm talking from some of the later periods, mammoths and things like that. But it was definitely some type of large reptilian creature, reptile. And it had an arrow in it, a flint arrow. Now, a flint arrow head has to be fired from somebody. Who fired that arrow? And she went public with it. Unfortunately, she was crucified for going public with that, and she lost the job, and she's now a florist. So, sometimes it doesn't do you well to talk about the subject of forbidden archaeology because
Hmm.
there's lots of it around which has been discovered, and when they find it, they hide it because even the archaeologists are gonna. It's too dangerous. They could lose the job over it and be shunned, and they don't want that, so they'd rather turn a blind eye, unfortunately.
Right. It's they say 2 million years ago, and then they found other artifacts that they dated, like this little pickaxe. They dated
Yes,
that to
okay.
what, a million or so years old, and
Yeah,
so we've had humanity has been here and gone several times, and we've had other ancient cultures, extraterrestrial. We're all ETs, I guess you could say, but basically, we come and go, and so these societies come and go, and what they do is they try to cover up all their technology before they leave, and even if that means like building big structures on top to stop people from getting under them like they now. But now they're finding ways of looking in the ground and finding ways of finding
yeah,
out. But we were
yeah.
talking about Dr. Hawass and the Egyptians. They're going to put a stop to all this, I guess, research underground. Is that what you're thinking too, Steve?
Well, I'm thinking they're trying to because they're complaining. Nobody's asked any permissions. They've just gone ahead and done this, and
Mhm.
they're very angry about it. But if there is anything, you see, for the Egyptian government, it's a big thing to say, you know what, you're related to a society or people, a civilization was probably were the most one of the most advanced civilizations on planet Earth at a given time. It's a credit to themselves. So they don't want to diminish that in any shape or form to say, well, do you know what? It might have not have been Egyptian. You know, the Sphinx was may have been a lion, and then we just adopted it and changed the head of the lion
Hmm.
to a pharaoh, you know, clearly because that was done because of the scaling and everything. He's completely out for the size of the head compared to the body. But there are a number of other sphinxes that have been located around, and some of them have literally been so terribly damaged by wind and erosion that you can see that they may have been once a sphinx, but not much left is left of them. So it's interesting to point out, though, that the Egyptian government don't want to go there, and 50% of the Egyptian specialists and scientists are slaughtered. They're battling each other. They're saying, "Well, this is just propaganda. We're drawing all these drawings and things." You know, how do you work that out from looking at those scans? It's somebody's idea and theories that have been put to paper and that's been distributed as fact.
Hmm.
But I do think there's something to it. There's some good weight to this. And I am aware, I absolutely am aware that the Egyptians had machines, they had tools. Now, they had boring tools, they even had a 32-foot saw. We know where it was in the foundation. Now, what you don't get told is that out in the middle of the desert, Egyptian desert, where you're not allowed to go, it's fenced off, you're not allowed in. There's a number of things in there, caves, which are guarded, strangely, by tanks. Interesting.
Wow.
And also very large pits. In those pits are massive amount of iron filings, metal. Now, if you put a car engine out in the desert, Egyptian desert, just for 5,000 years, there'd be nothing less but iron dust
Hmm.
because that's what
Right.
erosion would do over 5,000 years on a car engine. So these pits might have been where they placed all the machinery. We know it was a 32-foot saw because now we can see the saw marks on Egyptian cut blocks of stone, and we can see an arc. And that arc, when we measure it for the cutting saw, ends up 32 feet in diameter. So, and it was rotating quite fast. We see boreholes, and you can see the rotation. It was going into the rock. How often was it going into the rock? You can see the spalling effect. So they had machinery. They were clever, clever, clever people.
Right. And
But
yeah. And
the secret is that what happened to all the machinery? Well,
yeah.
wouldn't have lasted.
Right. I think a lot of that was hidden or taken away. We've had societies or civilizations, I must say, like out in our West here in the U.S., we had the Hopi Indians,
Mm,
and they talked about the ant people, and that whole tribe, and a lot of people like in South America, the Incas and Nazca, they all disappeared, just poof, gone.
yeah.
So, do you think they were taken up to another planet or off this planet and
It's a really good question, actually, Dave, because there's been a lot of speculation about these missing, sudden missing societies. Historians will say that they had something, some type of incident happened where they were forced to leave. Now, it could have been through warring, it could have been through famine, it could have been through weather alteration, or it could have been a catastrophe, whatever. But they've had to leave suddenly and quickly. However, it's affected a lot of different ancient civilizations all over the world. So it starts to be questionable as to why does it affect so many. We do know that some may have actually relocated, but then there are plenty of others which is just literally a mystery, just disappeared very quickly for no apparent reason. So we don't really know. But I mean, yes, I'm aware of the ant people and the Hopi, and there's many, many civilizations all over the planet that leave information behind, cuneiform tablets written in stone, certain images in cave drawings, and all sorts of different stuff, um, that talk about information that they should not be privy to. such as astronomical data, such as 9 planets in the solar system. Well, in fact, not nine, in fact, more than nine.
Hmm. I heard
But it
that.
was
Yeah.
only recently it was discovered that there is another planet out there beyond Pluto. So maybe they were calculating that, but how would they know? And the images in even in the Anunnaki images, Sumerian images, it's got a good size scaling of what the planets are. It's as if like they knew which ones were the four gas giants. How did he know this? How did he know about certain constellations and some stars that aren't visible to the human eye? They're too far away. I mean, it's just it's they must have or been given knowledge. Now, either had technology to know and see for themselves, or knowledge was shared. Incredible knowledge. I believe incredible knowledge because almost every civilization talks of seafaring people, advanced seafaring people that came to their land with incredible knowledge and educated them and made them into societies. We talk about there's several places all over the world that have the same story. Who were these mystery people? How did they gain that knowledge? We just don't know. There's so much we just really, really don't know, Dave.
Well, a lot of it's been whitewashed and deleted because they don't want us to know about it. Two organizations that come to mind: the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. They have the men in black to go out and take these
Oh
giant
yeah,
skeletons. They pick up the giant skeleton and they pick up on things that they don't want people to see. They have that buried in deep, dark,
they
I
do.
yeah,
Yeah,
you know, rooms,
sorry.
and also the Vatican is hiding
Yes,
a lot of stuff. So that's why are they doing it? Why are they keeping the history from us, Steve? They don't want us to. Now we're finding out all this technology, and I hope that they let us find out what's going on underneath the pyramid. I hope Hawass and the rest of the group there. But I'd like to find out more because that's going to give us more disclosure on extraterrestrials and life on this planet. And they're keeping that from us, and I don't know why. Smithsonian.
yeah.
Could you
It's a
could
big.
you tell me about the Smithsonian, Steve? What do you know about
Yeah,
that?
sure. Well, the Smithsonian student, of course, are quite well established and old, and they were responsible for the narrative about certainly humans and the variations of humans that lived upon planet Earth. Now we can go back into biblical times and stuff, and we talk about the Nephilim.
Hmm.
They came down from the heavens to the mountain regions. They were very large. They were giants,
Right.
and they liked to be here. So they took women and had children, and those children became kind of demigods, you refer to, and interbreeded in a sense. Now, what's interesting is that there are about 70% of the countries on planet Earth have an ancient past to giants everywhere. Giants. They existed. Now, they existed here in the UK. There is old documentation about them, these detailed records about them. And back in the day around the Earth, there was a lot of news items being found because there were a lot of discoveries being found, ancient bones. Now, they are incredible, some of them. I mean, now the largest ones, I believe, that have been discovered are in Africa, standing at a 36 feet. 36 feet. That's the size of a building, by the way.
Yes.
Now, the bones and the fossils, which I've seen, I have to say, they're remarkable when you start to look at, for instance, one um, fibia bone, and you look at that fibia bone, and it's the size of a man. So you've got to consider whatever this was, it was 6 times larger than this man. He was around about 5 foot, 5 foot 11, I think he was. So you're not far off 6 foot. So it's incredible some of the sizes. Now, some of them are smaller. Some of them are ranging from 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 13. And not only that, there were a breed in Pennsylvania of humans which were 9 feet tall, all around 9 feet tall, which were all discovered buried in Pennsylvania. And they had horns. They had two horns coming out the head. The skulls were found, photographs documented, The news came out, news teams took photographs, ran the story. The Smithsonian Institute got wind of this, came out, took them, disappeared. Now, the Smithsonian Institute were trying to bury this as much as they possibly can, but it was far too much out of control for them to deal with. These things are coming up all over the place, all over the world. They started storing them in into the archive vaults underneath the Smithsonian Institute, where not many people get to go. But it got to a point where they filled them, especially and they just couldn't keep doing it. So they ended up collecting them and shipping them, saying that they were being shipped over to towards the Smithsonian Institute, and they dump them over in the sea. They dump them overboard, and that's what they were doing for many years,
Wow.
trying to keep the secret. The narrative problem here is, according to, and this is why we have such a problem, Darwinian theory. And it's interesting. Let's not forget, the second word here is theory. It was a theory that Darwin had. Even Darwin was not like, this is the absolute how it must have happened, but it was a theory that we originated from the apes. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some, qualities to us which might say, okay, yes, there are some things that are a little bit similar, but we are vastly different. And we talk about evolving is about getting better. But the apes are better than us. They can see better, hear better. They can chew and swallow at the same time. They can smell better, seeing in the dark. The hair stops growing at a certain length. The nails stop growing at a certain length. They walk more flat-footed, which is better for walking on. Humans aren't very good at walking. We're always falling over and having injuries because we have to walk onto the two balls of our feet. We're
Mhm.
not we're not designed very well. So how did we get better, Dave? We didn't.
Yeah,
We de-evolved considerably
right.
from the apes. So it doesn't make sense.
Steve, I've heard that you were talking about these horned giants. This is where maybe the concept, the drawing of the devil comes from.
Yeah,
The horned giants. Maybe these things were evil and they ate people. They were,
it
uh,
may have been. Yeah, it's
yeah,
true. There were a lot of ginger red-headed ones found because some skulls still had some hair attached to them, and they were red. Some had two rows of teeth in the
mhm,
mouths,
right.
and extra fingers, an extra digit. So there's many of these all over the world, and the last time they recently found some was about 5 years ago in Romania. And there's still stories associated to some regions where we just do not go, that they believe that some of them still are alive today, living in caves and underground. I don't know about that, of course,
Yeah,
but
that's what I heard about, Afghanistan. Soldiers
yes.
finding some tall Nephilim type creatures or humanoids. Uh, and I guess there's a book written about that too. And there's a guy that I know, I've had him on the show several years ago, but he's well renowned in this area looking at the giants and everything. But I see that these things are being hidden from us. Somebody is in control. I don't know who's in control. We don't know. The puppet
Someone,
masters.
yeah,
Steve.
someone
Yeah.
he's been messing about with humans for a long time, making different versions, changing things, experimenting, because through the natural fossil record, these simply cannot exist. Because if they do, then we have to throw out the whole thing about Darwin and where we originated. Where did we come from? Who created? Did we get created? We can't just suddenly appear. I
Mhm.
mean, and that's exactly what the fossil record shows. Where's all the missing links? They said we can't find the missing link. Well, there must be hundreds of missing links to get from that to that.
Yes.
We can't just suddenly appear up, turn up on the day. So yes, we've been altered, and now there was a study done known as the Genome Project. Now, the Genome Project looked at two particular genomes within inside us, and they realized the chromosomes and two and was fused together because the nearest living ancestor, according to Darwin, is the chimpanzee. But the chimpanzee has two There's a difference between the chromosomes and how many they have in regards us. We're different. We don't know the reasons why, but we've found through the this particular program that studied humans that they had been fused together, and that fusing together can only be done in a laboratory initially, and then bred through genetically. Something or someone was responsible for changing us in a certain way. And as I see through the years, we've had so many variations: small humans, pygmies, large giants, ones with horns, some with two rows of teeth, some with extra digits. You know, there was ancient writings about the Cyclops apparently is supposed to have existed with one eye, central eye. You know, and you have to look at it and say, like people like doctors messing about in a laboratory, was something genetically messing about with humans. When it got to a point where we are the human sapiens sapien, we are Mark II, that they kind of say, okay, and I don't think it stopped there, because now we're discovering these vast deserts, genetic deserts in the genes in us. And, when we think, why, what's missing? Something doesn't add up. The last time we saw things altered like this was when we created something referred to as Dolly the sheep. I don't know if you remember Dolly the
Right.
sheep.
Yeah,
She
I
was
do.
she was a cloned,
Hmm.
but and she looks like a sheep, acts like a sheep. Under the microscope, though, you can tell she was genetically created because something wasn't right. And this is what we find in humans. But we can't go down that road because they don't want to open that, because it's the biggest question of all suddenly arises. Hang on a second. We've been telling everybody for countless years, from children in schools growing up, we originated from apes. They're our ancestral cousins.
I heard a story, Steve. The Jewish people, I don't know how true this is, but the DNA, you might know something about this. You were talking about apes and the Darwin theory and evolving from apes, but there's scientists now saying that our DNA is closer to pigs
Yes.
than it is to monkeys. So,
Yes.
and then that's why the Jewish people said don't eat pigs because they are, they're varmints, they're, they're dirty, and so don't eat them. But the reason behind that is because they even knew back then that maybe their DNA was close to ours. What do you know about that, Steve?
The genetics of the pig compared to us is remarkable. I mean, we couldn't even accept, I mean, we could even possibly accept certain organs from a pig. It's that close.
Hmm.
I mean, we can't do that with the apes. We can't,
No.
so in some ways, you see, when they say about the apes, they look at the apes and they go, okay, well, that's the nearest looking thing to the human. But inside and genetically, it's like, well, the pig is a lot nearer in many ways. And you know what they say, that there are scientists that say there's fundamental four blocks of life, which are responsible for the creation of everything on planet Earth, and its mass of variety. However, you should be able to see through ancestral records and fossil records the process of us changing over time. But we don't find that. We find it with other animals, like we find it with elephants, we find it from the mammoth and stuff like that. Even in the dinosaur era, when we're digging up in the fossil records, we can see genetic changes that have taken place. That the dinosaurs are now today's birds. They literally are flying dinosaurs. That's what the birds are these days. They lost
Right.
the
Yeah.
they lost the teeth and got these beaks.
Yeah, I've heard.
Um, and we can see through the transition through the fossil record how that came to be. But you won't find it with humanity. So the idea is try and keep a very tight lid on this, because it's gonna explode one day, and everybody's going to be asking that ultimate question: where the hell did we come from? And it's a big problem.
Yeah, we still ask that question, and some of us experiencers who've seen ETs and UFOs, they say, "Why me?" But let's go into another topic that I mean, these topics, you know a lot about each one of these topics. I mean, that's why I love talking to you and having you on the show, because you're just so open to all this. Now, you got into the paranormal studies also. I was asking you about the black-eyed kids. I
Yes.
Since I last saw you, my wife and I saw this strange girl, probably 16 years old, dark hair with a hood, the dark hood, a black hood, and she had black pants on this time, walking the street in the middle of nowhere. And we passed near her, passed by her. My wife looked at her and looked back at her. She said she looked like she had a dark complexion. And I said I couldn't see, I never have seen her face, just a side real quick. But also I had problems with my car a week or so ago. I know I thought
Oh,
talked to you about that. And this is a new car we bought, a Honda,
oh,
and I was outside of the workout gym, and in the same place almost in the parking lot, I put the car in drive, and I did everything else. I checked the brakes and all this. Everything was fine. The car wouldn't move. I gassed it. It wouldn't move. I put it in reverse. It wouldn't move. And I had no indicator lights, no brake, no nothing. I checked the gear shift and I checked the seat. Well, I had the seat belt off because I was going to pull down the parking lot. But I went back and checked later on the internet, and also I checked my car. I took the seatbelt off and tried to drive it, and it can drive. And the internet says yes, you can drive without the seatbelt on, but you'll get an indicator, dinging indicator. So I disproved that fact that
yes.
the seatbelt was a problem. But this has happened to me in my other car, the Escalade, and now it's happened on the brand new car. And
Yeah.
and then we saw this girl that's strange. And my wife saw her twice now, and I've seen her three times. I don't know what's going on. Is this a black-eyed kid, a teenager? Or
Yeah.
you tell me a little bit about that, Steve? What the how?
It's, what you're saying there, Dave, it mirrors a lot of things in my life.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I've had vehicle problems,
Yes.
and in fact, I was on my way to interview three British police officers from seeing a UFO sighting when suddenly my accelerator dropped to the floor. And I tried to put my foot underneath it to lift it, and I lifted it, and it just dropped to the floor again. The engine revs went very high, and I assumed the accelerator cable had broken.
Hmm.
And I had to stop the vehicle. And I put the alarm on the vehicle, and I rang up a breakdown service. About an hour later, I returned to the vehicle, unlocked it, and there has a certain alarm on that bleeps and lets me know that it hasn't gone off. It bleeps twice to say it's all good. If it bleeps four times, I know it's been in an alarm state. But it hadn't. It was fine. He turns up and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the vehicle. The accelerator is back into its normal position and it's perfect, no problem. And I was not allowed to interview those three police, so I missed
Yeah.
it, opportunity. Now it's strange how things happen like that. It happens to me, it's likely happening to other people. I also see strange things, and when people with me experience the same thing, I've seen cowled figures. I've seen somebody running who was above the ground in slower motion with somebody else. I've seen what looks to be like a banshee, to be honest with you, and flying actually, and then come down and land. I was with people. Sometimes we experience things from another reality. Some people have an expanded consciousness. You may have an expanded consciousness. Many of our viewers or listeners might have some form of expanded consciousness because people that have expanded consciousness gravitate to these subjects because it has intervened in their life somewhere, be it paranormal, UFO, or other strange experiences. But we tend to get these little glimpses of things that don't fit right in our reality. And yet other people with us will experience them. I have no explanation for them, other than that I see it, they see it, therefore it must be real to a sense of, to a certain sense. However, it doesn't fit into the norm. Just like sometimes you might have these experiences with vehicles, with strange, all
Who,
sorts of strange things that can be
who
seen.
could be doing this paranormal stuff with vehicles and for airports that are moved around and things are missing for a while and they come back? What entities are doing that, Steve?
Well, yeah, I've questioned this, and I just refer to it as the source, whatever this source is. It's massive and um, in control of so much of a mechanism on a global scale. It's incredible. However, that is part of reality. Let's not look at it as something separate from the reality we know. If it's all one thing? And we just didn't realize there was this other aspect to it. And some people can look through the veil. And when you look through the veil, it looks back and goes, oh, you can see through the veil.
Mm.
Okay, I'm going to play around a little bit. I'm going to do things, you know? And this is what we experience. It doesn't make any sense. Anybody would think you're going crazy. But the problem is, people experience it with you. It's not a singular experience. Other people experience it with you. So it's happening within our reality. Our reality is bending to this, and it's being manipulated by this. So whatever this source is, whatever's responsible, is manipulating reality and us within it. And that, if we ever consider that we are going to gain an advantage on this phenomena, I very much doubt.
They keep talking about the Matrix, Steve. I can't get it in my head. I know that if we are living in you know, not a real world, and what it is in front of us does not really matter. Scientists are saying that it's all frequencies and energy, and it's not
Yeah.
matter. Uh,
Well, they're trying to break it down on an atomic scale, and
oh,
basically what happens when you do that is you end up into the fringe subjects of quantum mechanics. Now, the quantum physicists who I've talked to many times explain it in a sense that imagine you know your kitchen, you're in a home, you imagine in your kitchen. Well, you know what your kitchen looks like, you know what items are in your kitchen. What their argument is that it doesn't exist until you experience it.
mhm.
Now you might argue the point, well, I can take a photograph, I can put a CCTV camera there and I can see it. Yes, because when you look at the photo and when you look at the video, you bring it into meaning. So therefore you see what you expect to see. And I was trying to wrap my head around that, Dave, for a long, long time, trying to figure out and kind of understand the matrix now. What they're saying is within our brains, the consciousness creates the reality we live in,
Yes.
and it duplicates and replicates. But as soon as we dissipate from it, it doesn't exist. It only exists to us. And when we bring people into that environment, they share the same experiences as us. So it's complicated. We're still in the infancy stages of quantum mechanics, but I kind of understand where they're going at about the matrix
Right.
because we have done tests on people where they've bent reality. You can't snap it, you can't break it, but you can bend reality to your will. We
Mhm.
had done experiments in the laboratory with people who are extremely lucky. I mean, why are some people so lucky? Some people have won the national lottery 3 times on a run. And you think, how does somebody, it's 14 million to one, how does a person win it 3 times?
I wonder that myself.
Exactly. Well, it's something about bending reality. Now, these people, they're extremely positive, optimistics, and they literally think to themselves, I am going to win. And with a knowing, and somehow reality bends itself to you. This is why people which are managed to control that positiveness and that willingness will have great success. It is that true. So what we did, we had to bring it into the lab to prove it. So we said, okay, these instruments, these things, the balls in containers, and they fall down. Now they always fall the same way, and as you drop them, they'll fall in a pyramid shape.
Mhm.
They influenced it just simply by wanting the balls to go more to the left or more to the right. In reality, it started to change. Now, it might have only been like 1% or 2%, but it shouldn't happen. Reality was changing dependent on their belief structure. So they were bending the positive outcome out of it. They were creating it themselves. So it is pliable reality. We can bend it. We can't break it. We have to there is rules there, but we can bend it in our favor. And it's the same for the opposite. There are people that have tremendous problems through their lives, are
Right.
when you talk to these people, they're very negative, and they're not positive, they're not optimistic. They're the sort of people say, do you know what? If it's going to happen, it'll always happen to me. and they'll be negative about it. They'll learn to be, because it's all consuming, and they'll go through life saying, "Well, do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this happens," and it happens. And then they'll find out all these things, these troubles, things break down all the time. They have fallouts, these financial issues, these problem. And the problem, the thing is, they just created that reality, and it's going to keep feeding the negativity.
Right. And that's what a lot of these people talk about manifestations
It's the same as manifestation.
and meditation and you go into this manifestation and positive energy. The reason why I brought in the Matrix a while ago, Steve, is because we were talking paranormal and what's going on with all these little things that move about and go bump in the night and mess with their cars and do this and that. And that's why I brought in the Matrix to try to, is that part of the energy that's shifting around in the Matrix that we
Well,
can
there
change?
is an intelligence. There are well, I say intelligences, but the problem is that it might be an intelligence that is providing itself the ability to be perceived differently. So some people tell me some incredible stories. They've seen an apparition of an angel, for an example, or some type of strange creature that was seen that looked like a gargoyle, or from hooded figures that are clearly not human.
Mhm.
You know, the range is massive. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of them worldwide, called different names and things. But I think it's a source, it's creating, it's generating, and if we give it a name and give it a reference, then it starts to bore. I mean, let's go back 30, 40 years. How many greys were around? Okay. Well, we know that the initiation was roughly around about 1961 when the first alien abduction officially was reported by Betty and Barney Hill in September, the White Mountains incident. However, they were not greys. They were small beings, of course, but not greys. They were different. When did the greys come to be? It's a really important question. Well, I discovered, started discovering mostly around about the early 80s. A lot of them before were different types of beings, looked a little bit like the greys, but they didn't have the big black eyes. And, you know, so a lot of the greys started to come around about the 80s. Now, why then throughout the 80s, it really spiked in the 90s and then got more and more. Now, why is that? Because of public knowledge, because of the internet, the grey is kept alive because that's what people experience. That's what people expect. It's all over the place. If I said to anybody on the street, draw me an alien, they're going to draw an alien grey because it's in the mindset. And
Yes.
this phenomena reads this and says, oh, do you know what? I'll be that.
Yeah,
You know,
I saw one in the '90s, a little gray, and yeah, and you're right. We can actually they say they shapeshift these aliens, ETs, and they also can present themselves as a false reality to you. They show you what they want you to see or what you want to see, like you're talking about. But what is behind all of it? Also, I'm going to bring this up too. I heard more stories about the reptilians actually controlling this planet, and they have control of all kinds of things in government and banking and people. And I heard that they have control of many other planets in this galaxy. The reptilians are supposed to they come on a planet, they take over. I'm talking. A lot of people think I'm talking sci-fi, but a lot of scientists actually believe that the reptilians have some kind of control on us here, or some ET has control on us, Steve. Is that
yeah.
is,
Well, do you know what? I think it's all one and the same thing. There's a lot of ploy, there's a lot of play in this, and there's a lot of disinformation, deception is involved. Um, I am aware that there has been reports of reptilians being seen, which have morphed into greys, and they've all been seen working together in some occasions. And they've been seen with humans, even on board crafts. So the problem is that our brains are completely scrambled during these experiences and we just don't know it. Why are human beings on board these crafts? Well, the human beings are generated. to make you think, okay, well, calm you down. There is, all right, okay, they're working, right. And it's the management situation. Everything about the way they look and act is being perceived through them, through what they want you to see. I will tell you now, we have not seen any of these sorts of, we have not seen its face. We have never, ever seen the face of this intelligence. It comes in many shapes, many forms, but not one of them. They're all masks. The phenomena stays the same, but they're all masks. And this is the same as when I work with Barry Fitzgerald, who's a colleague of mine. It's a well-known saying he has. It's the same phenomena, different mask. The mask is forever changing. And you know what? Even through experiments, communicating with NHI, they've even confessed. They even said we use masks. We see what we want you to see. So the problem is that how do we have reliable information, because what we see is not the truth. That is the lie. That is the screen, which alters and changes. You look at Travis Walton. It's a very well-known case.
Yeah.
Abducted for 5 days, November 75, from the mountain ranges in Flagstaff, and he talks openly. And you know what? I know Travis extremely well. Extremely well. He's a really good friend of mine. We've traveled around different places in the US on road trips and stuff together. I've worked alongside with Travis for quite some years. And legitimately, he's had this experience. Absolutely 100%. But when he's on board, he talks about waking up and seeing small three grey looking type beings. But they weren't greys as you would expect them to be. They were shaped and sized like a small child, like a grey with a large head, but they didn't have the massive big black eyes. That's the first change. It's a bit more like, not quite like the Betty and Barney Hill, because they didn't have enormous heads. They were small like child's, but clearly not human. So you got these variations, hundreds of variations just within the grey types. But he panics. He picks up something. He's swinging at them in panic and shouting and screaming in fear. The three beings rush out the room. Within a minute or so, when he wanders out, goes into another room, but a minute or so later, he is met by not the greys, not the small beings, whatever these things are, a human looking one. And that takes control of the situation, calms him down, gets the mask on him. He goes out. Next minute, they've dumped him. They've got rid of him. He's too
Yeah.
much of a problem. Get rid of him. You don't even allow him to get dressed. They just get rid of him. He's a problem.
No,
And they dumped him,
I
you
met
know?
I met Travis too, and I seen him in several conferences, and actually went to his house and visited him one time. And he's original, and he was very scared
Oh,
for
yeah.
several years, and still is a little nervous about these.
Yeah, and he still has, believe it or not, sightings, because even when I was traveling with him on the road, we looked up. Well, I looked up, my partner looked up, and we said, we're traveling down the highway and we're being tracked, we're being followed in the sky by a craft.
Really? Wow.
And we looked up and saw it. Travis looked up and saw it, and we stopped. And when we stopped, it stopped. And we watched it. We thought, okay, that's really interesting. And we were giggling about it, myself and Travis, because I said, I said, Travis, we're going to get two for the price of one here. And he laughed. And we jumped in the car and we carried on. And it started to follow us again. And this happened two, 3 times. We saw this thing. So, and he said, you know what? It does happen. And I said, yeah, it happens with me as well. And he said, yeah, yeah. So, they're consciously connected with certain individuals. Now, was it a management situation? Travis has gone absolutely berserk on the ship. The Greys go out the room, and the next minute, what's appear? A human one. And he calms it all down and sorts it all out. And are they one of the same thing? Did he just transition, just make him look okay? To deal with this, let's go. We're going to have to make ourselves look human,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and act in a way. But they didn't talk, because they don't talk like we talk, because they don't have the vocal cords like we do. they talk through telepathy or transplacement. This transplacement is the parapsychological term in the paranormal sense. That's the giveaway that this is all the same source because they all act the same way. The image of them changes, but they all act the same way. If there are different species, how many species on planet Earth act the same way? Not many, not many at all. And you think about that, I think it's a management situation that they went away and tried to deal with Travis in a different way. So let's appear to be human and take control of the situation. Just get him off the ship. You
Now,
know, the poor guy
although
didn't even get
yeah,
changed, you
yeah.
know.
Now, although they say there are a lot of humans in the galaxy, our species, and we got humanoid ETs. Uh, I go back to this thing about. I wanted to ask you a question. The governments, what do they think about all this craziness that's going on? The Matrix, the the paranormal events and
Well,
UFOs. I mean, you talk to a lot of, you rub elbows with a lot of them. What do they think about all this, Steve?
what I can tell you, what I can say is that they are aware that there is a narrative to say that these things are coming from various different planets. They're not. They're not coming from various different planets. Now that they are interested in our space adventures, and they have assisted us in many, many ways in technology to get to space. And but in higher circles, they pay homage to them for that, even in now, even in 2025. But I can't go into that in too much of detail. But they're aware that we are dealing with a source. You know, the whole idealism of entities in their thousands of variations coming from thousands of different planets is a Star Trek episode. We're all bipedal. Doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. All we've got to do is go to the bottom of the North Sea to truly see something alien. And that's just at the bottom of the North Sea. That's how different it is, the environment at the bottom of our North Sea, than it is on our land. To see something that you think, what the hell is that? Like, oh, it comes from planet Earth. You know, so just that variation, let alone going to the distance of other planets where different air, different oxygen, gravities, all sorts of different things. You would expect, well, no way they're all going to be bipedal, two arms, two legs, two eyes, a mouth. You know, it just doesn't. And they know this.
Mhm.
However, it's manufactured for us. And they use that stereotypical bipedism on purpose, you know, but many, many variations. Now, it's been interacting with humanity for a long time. They've always been here. Phenomenon is not new. It's been here for a long, long, long time.
Now, the government mentioned
Yeah,
interdimensional. They come in and
they
out.
are interdimensional. Yes, and it's not extraterrestrial we're dealing with. It's interdimensional. But they are going somewhere where the manufacture of certain things are man-made, are manufactured. Structured crafts, in some sense, are manufactured. Now, here's the other narrative, things that they push out, which isn't true. Metamaterials, UFO metamaterials. There's lots of talk about, oh, well, the isotopic differential in the metamaterials is 4% differential, which means that it's not built here on planet Earth. That's a lie. When they said about Roger Lear, who's passed away, bless him now, about patient 19 and a number of other incidents of the removal of alien implants, said that there was an isotopic differential in the implant. That was a lie. But they had to put that narrative forward because they want people to believe that these are extraterrestrial. Now, the narrative's changing, and we know that the materials manufactured and found in these crafts are terrestrial based. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of it is aluminium, but it's a very high purity aluminium. Now, aluminium is a very abundant across Earth. 25 miles from the surface down to the bottom, 25 miles down, you'll find aluminium. You'll never find it at 98, 99% purity. Never. It has to be industrialized and machined to do that. Someone is creating that. They are. but they're using materials found here on planet Earth. There is not one piece of evidence ever to suggest that the materials used are coming from another planet or extraterrestrial in origin. And that's what's fascinating. And that's what gave it away, even in modern times. We're dealing with a terrestrial based phenomena,
Hmm.
interdimensional,
Yeah,
not extraterrestrial.
yeah, that's strange. That's the whole thing. Well, we're up at past an hour, and so it's been so great. I want, of course, if you would you could come back.
Absolutely, Dave.
There's other topics I wanted you to get into. I wanted to
Sure.
get into cryptids. I know you know quite a bit about that, and I wanted to get into the black-eyed kids because I might have something going on there, and I know other people are thinking about that topic too. Who are they? What are they? What and there's some biblical stuff I wanted to talk about that a lot of scientists and a lot of scholars are coming up with different angles of the Bible, and some are
Yeah.
saying don't even read the Bible at all because it's not the God you think it is. That's weird. I mean,
Oh, yes.
yeah, these
We
scholars are
could, we could
coming
get
up.
into that next time. Yeah, I know some.
Yeah, I'm a spiritual person, and I know there's a source and a creator, so
Yes,
I
there
know
is.
that much, but
Yes, there is.
how we associate, with the Bible and history, it could be, it may not be what we think it is, and that's what they're saying.
Well, what if, and I'll leave you with this,
Okay,
what if the concept, the idea, and our understanding of God was hijacked by the phenomena?
yeah,
I will leave you at that because
hey, that's good. My guest Stephen Mera, and he's a great guy, man. I can't believe the information that you have up here. I'll tell you what, the Matrix has been good to you, Stephen.
thank you.
so I know people enjoy your talks, and I know they're going to enjoy this one. And I'll have this posted in a couple of days. I got to let this other post run out for 3 days, and that's how I do things here. You've been listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons, and Stephen Mirror has been my guest and a past guest, and he'll be back. And I'm sure that you guys really like him, and we'll have him back, and maybe we'll have something new each time he comes back. We'll have something new to talk about. Stephen, thank you so much for being on the show,
You're
and
welcome.
thanks to everybody listening in and viewing this show too on The Strange Reality. Thank you. Good, good,
Thank
good.
you.